One last blind date. The CEO planned to leave after 5 minutes, but her laughter made him stay forever. Daniel Blake stood at the edge of the fall festival, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, posture sharp against the golden glow of carnival lights. Laughter rang through the crisp October air. The scent of kettle corn and apple cider drifted past in waves, mixing with the earthy bite of dried leaves. Everything around him screamed nostalgia and cheer. He hated it. Too much noise, too much forced joy. He was only here because of his mother. "Just meet her," she had said, firm but pleading. 5 minutes. You owe me that much after everything I've been through. So here he was, but with a rule. If it feels wrong after 5 minutes, I walk away. No apologies. It was how he handled people now. Clean, efficient, detached. The event was part of a charity raffle, blind date for a good cause, but it was his mother who had orchestrated every detail. He'd expected dinner at some upscale restaurant, suits, polished floors, a wine list. Instead, this. A festival, lanterns, cotton candy. The entire evening designed around pumpkins, hay bales, and country music. He checked his watch. Then the crowd shifted, and he saw her. Hannah Pierce. She walked slowly toward him from the main gate, framed by the warm blur of string lights and falling leaves. Her hair was soft gold, loose tonight, stirred gently by the wind. A few strands swept across her cheeks, and she didn't bother to fix them. She wore a simple coat, a pale scarf knotted loosely at her neck, and boots that had clearly seen more use than style. No heavy makeup, no forced smile. Just her. And for a second longer than he meant to, Daniel stared. There was something unpolished about her, refreshingly so. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just was. Then he blinked, and the moment passed. His features rehardened, jaw setting back into place. "Hannah?" he said. She stopped in front of him, smiling, cheeks pink from the wind. "Hi, you must be Daniel." He nodded, briefly shaking her hand. Her skin was cold, but soft. "Thank you for meeting me here," she said. "I know it's not exactly conventional." Daniel gave her a look, raising a brow at the flashing lights and shrieking kids in the background. No white tablecloths, no overpriced wine. "You clearly misunderstood the assignment." Hannah laughed, and the sound startled him. Not the laugh itself, but the way it landed. Light, unguarded, without the smallest hint of awkwardness. "I asked your mother if we could meet somewhere simple," she explained. "I don't like restaurants on first dates. Everything feels rehearsed. The lighting's too low, the food's too expensive, and people talk like they're auditioning for a job." Daniel considered that. "And you picked this?" "I picked something honest," she said. "People are too busy having fun to pretend here." They began walking slowly past the booths. The conversation was hesitant at first light, observational. She wasn't trying to fill every silence. She wasn't pushing questions. She let the pauses linger, comfortable in them. It was unsettling and strangely calming. Then it happened. Daniel turned slightly, preparing to politely excuse himself, to thank her for the effort, say a few decent words, and leave. But Hannah stopped walking. She looked up at something behind him and smiled faintly. "You ever been on that?" she asked. He followed her gaze to the Ferris wheel. It stood tall and a little weathered at the edge of the fairground, its lights flickering gold and blue. The creak of the turning gears carried softly through the air. "I have not," he said honestly. "Not in a long time." She tilted her head. "It looks different from up there. The town, I mean. When you see it from above, quiet, lit up in all the right places, it almost feels like a different world." Daniel didn't speak. She looked at him then, and for the first time, her expression wasn't just calm, it was vulnerable. "I used to come here with my sister," she added, quieter now. "It was our ritual. Ride the Ferris wheel once, no matter what else we did." He stood still, watching her. The breeze tugged at a strand of her hair, and she tucked it behind her ear absent-mindedly. Her eyes were the color of stormlight, soft and steady, not looking for anything, just being there. Daniel exhaled slowly. He didn't know why, but instead of leaving, he found himself saying, "Would you want to ride it now?" She seemed surprised. "If you don't have somewhere else to be." "I don't," he said. And just like that, the rule, his carefully constructed rule, folded. They didn't rush to the Ferris wheel. Instead, they wandered first, past the glow of string lights and laughter spilling from booths. A ring toss caught Hannah's eye, and without waiting for his opinion, she stepped up to play. Daniel paid the booth attendant silently and watched her miss every throw, though she grinned like she was winning. Next came cotton candy. She insisted on getting the blue one. "It tastes better," she claimed. He rolled his eyes but took a bite when she offered. It was absurdly sweet. She looked pleased with his reaction. A photo booth stood nearby, its light flickering. Hannah hesitated, then shrugged. "Souvenir." Daniel didn't say no. The resulting photo strip captured her laughing, him looking mildly alarmed, and in the last frame, her tugging his coat playfully. It was ridiculous. And he folded the strip into his wallet anyway. They walked slowly. The chill in the evening deepened, but she didn't seem to notice. He did, though, not the cold, but the way she moved through the night like it wasn't made of sharp edges, like she'd made peace with something long ago. At one point, they passed a booth filled with stuffed animals and rubber ducks bobbing behind a plastic curtain. Hannah stopped. Her smile faded just slightly. Daniel watched her stare at the line of toy ducks floating in circles. There was nothing dramatic in her expression, just quiet. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, then after a moment murmured, "There are days I wonder if I'm in the right field. Days I go home and think, maybe I'm not good enough to keep doing this." He didn't push, he didn't ask, but something in the way she said it settled heavily in his chest. Daniel picked up the toy rifle from the nearby counter and held it out to her. "This time, you don't have to save anyone. Just hit a duck." She looked at him and then, unexpectedly, laughed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't joyful, but it was real, the kind of laugh that escapes before sadness gets the last word. He smiled without meaning to. She missed her first 2 shots, hit one, and gave him a triumphant look like she'd just won a championship. And for the first time all night, Daniel stopped thinking about the time. They stood there for another minute, surrounded by blinking lights and the distant sound of carousel music. He didn't know what this was becoming, but it didn't feel like a mistake. Not anymore. "Ready for the Ferris wheel?" she asked, brushing wind-blown hair from her cheek. He nodded quietly. "Yeah, I think I am." They reached the Ferris wheel just as twilight deepened. Its gold and blue bulbs blinked lazily against the indigo sky, casting a flickering glow over the quiet edge of the festival. The line had thinned. Most people had moved on to louder rides, brighter distractions. Hannah hesitated at the entrance. Daniel noticed the pause. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she said, smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. He didn't press. They stepped into the cabin. It groaned beneath them, old metal joints protesting like they remembered 1,000 rides before. The door clicked shut. As the wheel began to rise, the town slowly fell away. The blinking lights of the booths, the laughter from spinning rides, the rooftops, the trees, all of it shrinking. Hannah sat stiffly, hands in her lap, spine too straight. Daniel glanced at her. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded once, curt. Then a breeze caught the cabin, tilting it just slightly. Her hand shot out, gripping his. Daniel stilled. Her fingers were cold. She didn't look at him, just kept her eyes ahead. "I hate this," she whispered. "What? The height?" "The feeling. Suspended. No control. Like if something goes wrong, there's nothing I can do to stop it." He said nothing. She took a shaky breath. "It's the same feeling I had when we lost him." Daniel turned toward her. "The boy I mentioned," she said quietly. "The one I couldn't save. I was with him when it happened. His mom held his hand. I just stood there, watching the line go flat, frozen." Her voice cracked. "I thought I was strong. I always told myself I could handle it. But that night, I felt like a child in scrubs. Daniel didn't respond. He didn't move. He let her hold on. Then, everything went dark. The wheel lurched to a stop mid-air. Their cabin swayed. Below, every light vanished. No blinking bulbs, no music. Only the hush of wind and the faint hum of distant emergency power. Hannah stiffened beside him, clutching the edge of the seat with her free hand. "Power outage," Daniel said calmly. Still, she didn't speak. He felt her panic in the way her fingers tightened around his. Without a word, he slipped off his coat and draped it around her shoulders. Then he rested his hand back in hers. "We're okay," he murmured. "It's just a little darkness." Silence stretched. Then, her voice again, softer, steadier. "I used to believe if I worked hard enough, cared enough, I could keep people from dying." She paused. "But sometimes, you do everything right, and it still ends the same, and no one tells you how to look a mother in the eye when that happens, or how to carry it home." Daniel looked out at the town, swallowed in shadows. Then back at her. "I know that sound," he said. She turned to him. He nodded. "I used to be a surgeon." Her breath caught. "There was a man," he continued, voice low. "Dr. Reeves, my mentor. We were in the middle of a complex procedure. Something went wrong with the oxygen line. Equipment failure." He drew a slow breath. "I did everything I could. But he died. Right there. In my hands. A beat. The next morning, I quit. Walked out. I couldn't trust myself after that." Hannah's expression softened. "You blamed yourself?" "I didn't know who else to blame." Quiet again. Then she said, "Maybe saving someone isn't always about fixing it. Maybe it's about being there when they're scared, letting them feel less alone." He looked down at her hand in his. Not desperate anymore. Just warm, present. "You're doing that now," he said. "For me." She gave him a fragile smile. "And you're doing it for me, too." Above them, the stars blinked awake. The town was silent. Below, the lights flickered back on, soft at first, then brightening. The wheel hummed. The ride resumed. But neither of them moved. Their hands remained linked. Her head leaned gently against his shoulder. And as the town glowed again beneath them, cotton candy stands, lanterns, music echoing faintly, something else had shifted too. Not the world. Just the space between two people. And for once, it didn't feel like falling. It felt like holding on. The Ferris wheel ride ended slower than it began, like even the old machine understood something fragile had just unfolded. When the cabin finally touched ground, neither Hannah nor Daniel spoke. They simply stepped out in silence, the moment between them still hanging in the crisp night air. The lights of the fairground were blinking back to life, games buzzing, carousels spinning, voices rising again like a soundtrack restarting after a long pause. They walked quietly for a few moments, not speaking. Then Daniel gestured to an empty wooden bench just off the path, away from the lights and noise. Hannah nodded, and they sat. From where they were, the entire fair stretched before them, glowing and humming like a warm memory still being made. Daniel checked his watch without really meaning to. His brow lifted slightly. Hannah noticed. "Is it later than you expected?" He gave a soft exhale, not quite a laugh. "Let's just say I broke my own rule tonight." She tilted her head. "What rule?" He glanced sideways at her, a smile tugging the edge of his mouth. 5 minutes. That's all I gave myself for blind dates." Hannah smiled, tugging her scarf tighter. The breeze had picked up, brushing strands of her hair across her cheek. "Guess I should apologize then." Daniel turned to her fully. "You shouldn't." A pause. She looked down at her hands in her lap. "I know I'm not the kind of person people expect to find in your world." He blinked. "My world?" "You know what I mean. Hospitals with marble lobbies, boardrooms, glass elevators. You probably don't meet many nurses who still use coupons and eat cafeteria jello on double shifts." Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. You say that like it's something to apologize for. It's not. It's just reality. He was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, you didn't just keep me longer than 5 minutes, Hannah. You kept my mind from wandering, and lately that's harder than you think. That made her smile, small and honest. They sat like that a while longer, not needing to say more. Eventually, Hannah glanced at the Ferris wheel again, now spinning slowly under full light, the cabins filling with new voices and laughter. It's strange, she murmured. Something about being up there made everything feel smaller, not in a bad way, just clearer. Daniel followed her gaze. Perspective tends to do that. She looked back at him. Thank you. For what? For staying. He didn't answer right away, just nodded. Then she stood, brushing her hands on her coat. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. He rose too. I'll walk you out. They strolled in silence, the warm gold of the overhead string lights painting the pavement with moving shadows. At the edge of the festival, she turned to face him. Well, she said with a small smile. This was unexpected. He nodded, in a good way. She hesitated, then extended her hand. Good night, Daniel. He took it gently. Good night, Hannah. She started to walk away, slow and steady. He stood there, watching her go, hands in his pockets. She reached the corner, then, almost imperceptibly, turned back. He hadn't moved. Their eyes met. She gave him the faintest smile before turning again and disappearing into the street beyond. Daniel turned to head the other way, only to pause at the bench where they had sat. Something pale was draped across the wood. A scarf. Her scarf. He picked it up, running a thumb over the soft fabric. It still smelled faintly like her vanilla, lavender, wind. He folded it carefully, tucked it under his arm, and walked into the night with something almost like hope tugging gently at his chest. Not a promise. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, not the end. The next morning, Daniel stood in his kitchen with a mug of black coffee going cold in his hands. The scarf sat folded on the counter beside him, soft, pale, and unmistakably hers. He stared at it for a while. Then, without overthinking it, he picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months. His mother answered on the second ring. You want her number, she said before he could speak. He paused. Yes. There was a rustle, a hum of satisfaction on the other end. I told you 5 minutes wouldn't be enough. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. It's not. This isn't. Returning a scarf is a perfectly respectable excuse, dear, his mother cut in, reading him effortlessly. And don't wait too long. He found her at a small second-hand bookstore, tucked between a bakery and a barber shop on a quiet side street. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, scanning through a weathered pediatrics textbook with colored tabs sticking out at odd angles. She looked up when she heard the bell chime and blinked, surprised. Daniel. He held up the scarf. You left this behind. Her expression softened, and she rose to her feet, brushing imaginary dust from her jeans. I was wondering where I'd dropped that. He handed it over, their fingers brushing for a second too long. I didn't expect to see you again, she said, not accusing, just honest. I didn't plan to, he replied, but then I did. A pause. Want to help me carry some of these? She asked casually, gesturing to the stack of books next to her. I'm hunting for old editions. Some of my patients respond better when the pictures look hand-drawn, not glossy and perfect. He nodded, and they fell into step. It wasn't a date, but it felt like something more than a coincidence. They ended up in a sunlit corner of the shop, books between them, laughter spilling occasionally between quiet moments. This time there was no pretense, no timer ticking. She told him about her routines, about the children she worked with, and about how healing, real healing, was often about holding a hand more than fixing a symptom. At one point she looked at him and asked, "Why run a hospital if you don't believe in saving people anymore?" Daniel leaned back slightly, considering. "Maybe because you were right," he said slowly. "Healing doesn't always mean surgery or big wins. Sometimes it's just building a place where people are allowed to try." Hannah held his gaze for a moment longer, then smiled. "I think that counts." A week later, Hannah returned to her hospital and was called into a staff meeting. The energy in the room was different, hopeful. One of the administrators announced that a special fund had just come through, a full renovation grant for the pediatric unit. Updated equipment, new comfort furniture for families, art therapy supplies, a private space for grieving parents. Anonymous donor, the administrator said, didn't want naming rights, just said it was in honor of the nurses who don't get enough credit. Hannah felt her breath hitch. She said nothing, but her mind went straight to a man in a quiet bookstore, gently thumbing through a medical book he no longer practiced from. Later that day, she walked past the pediatric ward, her old hallway, and saw construction tape marking where the new comfort room would be built. And beside it, a simple temporary sign taped to the wall in plain black letters. "Coming soon. A space for healing." She didn't need to ask who had written the words. She touched the edge of the paper with her fingertips and whispered to no one. "You're still saving people, Daniel, just differently." And maybe, she thought as she walked away, just maybe, so was she. The gala sparkled with crystal chandeliers and polished silverware, the kind of night where everyone spoke a little too loudly and laughed a little too perfectly. Daniel had attended countless events like this, donor dinners, award ceremonies, investment announcements, but this one felt different, because Hannah was coming. He had invited her carefully, deliberately, not because he needed to show her off, but because he genuinely wanted her beside him. It was the first time he'd ever brought someone outside his world into the heart of it, and a part of him was nervous. But he had made a choice. Tonight, he wanted her to know she belonged, wherever he was. When Hannah arrived, she stood at the top of the grand staircase for a moment, scanning the room. She wore a navy dress, elegant but simple, her blonde hair pulled low at the nape of her neck, no jewelry except a slim silver bracelet. She looked calm, but Daniel saw her hesitation. He moved through the crowd quickly to meet her and took her hand without waiting. "You look beautiful," he said. "And tonight, you're the person I most want standing beside me." No titles, no expectations. Her eyes softened at his words, and she smiled, but there was still a quiet uncertainty beneath it. He didn't let go of her hand as they walked into the ballroom. At first, everything went smoothly. They mingled, sipped champagne, and listened to short speeches. Daniel introduced her simply as Hannah, never explaining, never qualifying. But the questions came anyway. A woman in a sleek red gown and expensive heels, a renowned cardiac surgeon, tilted her head and asked, "Are you one of the research fellows, or public relations?" Hannah answered evenly, "I was in pediatrics. Now I support emergency nursing shifts." A thin smile, a polite nod. Nothing overt, but the temperature in the room shifted slightly around her. Later, as they passed a pair of men near the silent auction table, one of them leaned in to whisper to the other, just loud enough for Hannah to catch. "If Blake's really getting serious, I'd expect at least a medical director or some Harvard genius, not a floor nurse." She stood still for a beat, her wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. Daniel, across the room giving a short statement to the press, didn't see her expression falter. When he returned, his eyes found hers immediately. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. Hannah smiled, small and composed. "I think I'll head out a bit early. Thank you for tonight." He reached for her arm, gently stopping her. "Did something happen?" She hesitated, then met his gaze, her voice quiet but firm. "You're a good man, Daniel, but I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep proving I deserve to be in rooms like this. Not when every look, every word, feels like I'm being measured against a scale I never agreed to." Daniel froze, unsure how to respond. "I'm tired of feeling like I have to earn the right to be seen," she added. He watched her turn and walk toward the exit. Her scarf slipped from her shoulder as she moved, trailing behind like a forgotten whisper. She didn't look back. That night, Daniel tried to call. No answer. He texted once. Then again. Still nothing. The next morning, he showed up at the hospital, but she had transferred her shifts to the emergency department. A nurse at the front desk gave him a pointed look when he asked for Hannah. "She's busy," the nurse said coolly. "Maybe it's best if you let her be." Daniel returned to his office, sat at his desk in silence, and opened the drawer where he kept the drawing he'd taken from the pediatric ward weeks ago. A child's crayon sketch of a nurse with bright yellow hair and a glowing pair of hands. "She has magic hands," the child had written in shaky letters. "She makes people feel better." Daniel stared at it for a long time. How, he wondered, could someone capable of healing everyone else believe she wasn't worthy of being loved? And why, for the first time in years, did he feel completely powerless to fix it? 3 weeks had passed since the gala. No calls, no texts, just silence. Daniel had replayed that night in his mind more times than he could count. The way Hannah had smiled despite the sting in her eyes. The way she had walked away without her scarf, without a second glance. Her words haunted him. "I'm not sure I'm strong enough to stand beside you in a world like this." He had built that world, brick by brick, walls of logic, gates of status. And now, for the first time, he wished he could tear it down. One rainy Tuesday, he found himself walking past the small cafe near the hospital, the one with old armchairs and books piled in the corners. Hannah used to stop there for tea after her shifts. He stepped inside, scanning the space, but she wasn't there. Instead, his eyes landed on a wooden plaque above the counter. It read, "To the nurses of the ER, the quiet heroes we forget to thank." He stood still for a long time. Then he turned around, walked out, and made a decision he hadn't made in years. The next morning at St. Vincent's emergency department was chaos. Flu season, a city-wide bus accident, short staff. Everyone moved like clockwork, running on caffeine and adrenaline. Hannah had barely slept. Her bun was loose, her scrub top slightly wrinkled, and her hands smelled faintly of antiseptic. She was writing notes on a chart when a voice behind her said, "I brought coffee and pastries, and if it's all right, I can help with bandaging today." She turned and froze. Daniel stood there in rolled up sleeves, no blazer, no tie, just a man holding 2 trays of coffee and a paper bag filled with pastries. His smile was tentative, his eyes steady. "Daniel," she breathed, "what are you doing here?" "I can't change the world I live in overnight," he said, his voice quiet, measured. "But I can walk into yours, and if you'll let me, I'd like to stay in it, longer than 5 minutes this time." The room fell still. Dr. Wallace, an older physician walking by, gave Daniel a knowing pat on the shoulder. "Welcome back to the ER, Blake." A younger nurse nudged her colleague. "Is that the CEO? Wait, he knows how to wrap a wrist?" Hannah let out a small, surprised laugh, soft and genuine. Daniel looked at her then. Really looked. And for once, she didn't look away. They spent the day together, not talking much, just working. He assisted quietly, handed gauze, wrapped ankles, took vitals when needed. He didn't try to impress anyone. He just helped. Later, after the shift ended, they sat on a bench outside the staff entrance. The sun was low, casting golden light across the pavement. Hannah handed him a first aid kit. "You have a paper cut," she said, gesturing to his hand. Daniel opened the kit, took a small antiseptic wipe, and then paused. "May I?" he asked. She nodded. He took her hand, gently cleaned the tiny scratch on her palm, one she hadn't noticed. Then he pressed a small bandage over it, carefully smoothing the edges. There were no grand gestures, no declarations. Just this, tenderness where it mattered most. Hannah looked down at their hands, then back up at him, and Daniel, still holding her fingers gently, said nothing. He didn't need to. She already understood. The air held that same crisp bite, the same golden leaves swirling on the wind, the same flickering lights lining vendor stalls. But somehow, everything felt different. A month had passed since Daniel showed up at the ER and asked to stay in Hannah's world. Now the fall festival had returned, like it always did, with its warm cider, soft music, and the gentle hum of the Ferris wheel rising into the dusk. Hannah was just finishing her shift when her phone buzzed. She slipped it from her coat pocket. A message from Daniel. "I want to see the town from above again, but not just for 5 minutes." A quiet smile spread across her face. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the rooftops, Hannah walked toward the fairgrounds. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a soft bun, a light blue scarf wrapped around her neck, fluttering gently. He was already there, waiting at the base of the Ferris wheel, near the same cabin. No coat and tie tonight, just a knit sweater and a small wool blanket over his arm. Their eyes met. No words at first, just a shared smile. "Hey," she said, her voice light. "Hey," he replied. "Right on time." They climbed into the cabin. It shifted under them, rising slowly over the rooftops and fair tents, but neither looked down. "Let's hope we don't lose power this time," she teased, glancing at the flickering lights along the wheel. Daniel smiled. "And if we do, at least now I brought a blanket." She laughed. This time, it was easy, real. Her shoulders relaxed. As their cabin neared the top, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, not a ring box but thinner. Inside was a silver chain with a tiny Ferris wheel charm, delicately etched. She blinked. He didn't kneel, didn't ask for her hand, just looked at her. "The first time I met you, I planned to leave after 5 minutes," he said. "That was my rule. No attachment, no risk." He paused, his voice calm. "But 5 minutes with you changed something. You laughed like you meant it. You listened without judgment. You made me want to stay. Not just that night, but in the version of myself I am when I'm with you." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He lifted the necklace and placed it gently around her neck, the charm resting just over her heart. "This isn't a proposal," he said. "Not yet. It's not a promise that I know everything about the future. It's just a commitment, that each day I'll choose to stay." His voice softened. "If you ever feel unsteady or scared, I'll be here. I'll be the hand you can hold." Hannah pressed her palm over the charm, tears shining in her eyes. Her voice came barely above a whisper. "You already are." They said nothing more. The cabin began its descent. The fair glowed below, bathed in golden light. She leaned against him, her fingers slipping into his, not out of fear, but just because. When they stepped off the ride, the noise of the festival returned in full. Children ran past with caramel apples and glowing balloons. A slow song played from somewhere near the carousel. Daniel turned to her, voice low. "This time, I'm not leaving." She looked up at him, eyes clear and sure. "And this time, I'm not letting you." They walked forward, hand in hand, into the crowd and the lights. No more words needed. Just the quiet, certain knowing that something real had begun. Something worth staying for. Thank you for joining us for one last blind date. The CEO planned to leave after 5 minutes, but her laughter made him stay. Forever. If this story stirred something in you, whether it was a memory, a tear, or a quiet smile, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more heart-deep tales like this one. We release new romantic journeys every week, each one crafted to remind you that love often begins where logic ends. And hey, if you felt something real today, tap that hype button to help this story reach more souls who might need it. Until next time, stay open, stay kind, and remember, sometimes 5 unexpected minutes can rewrite a whole lifetime.